Okay, we're going to go ahead and, let's see, there we go. Going to go ahead and get started. I know I'm 1 minute early, but I don't like getting started late, and there's a lot of stuff I'd like to talk about today. I know it said we're going to have a discussion. That's at the end. Hopefully we have time that if anybody has any things that they're like, hey, I definitely add this to your list of things that needs to be done. That's kind of where we're going to add this. I also have it open as a Google presentation that you can add comments. I'm Brian Poole. Welcome to the eTech conference. And I am recording it. I already started that. So basically where this is at the tiny URL at the end of it, the YouTube will be posted of the discussion. If you haven't been to one of my sessions before, I am not overly slow. That's the best way of saying it. So that's why I always record, so you can rewind me and play me at 50% speed if you want to. Let's see if my mouse is going to work. And it's not. Let's see if we work. There we go. You don't need to know much about me, but just so you know my district and where I'm coming from. And somehow I got back to that, and I didn't mean to. There we go. We're a Windows district. We have some Ubuntu servers. We have some iPads, but mainly we're a K through 12 Windows district. I teach half-time. I do advanced technology classes in the high school, as well as being the tech coordinator. The only other staff I have is I have a college intern from IU that works 1 to 2 days a week, depending on his schedule. I maintain 1,409 devices. We do no outside contracting. I have 28 servers, 200 thin clients, which are WISE thin clients going to Windows 2016 servers, multiple Windows workstations, 300 laptops, and really I have 600 laptops, but 300 in the one-to-one program. The rest of them I just kind of lumped under the workstation. And we have 320 iPads in our elementary school, just kind of let you know where I'm coming from and why I think this discussion is important. It really started for me this past summer. I had a friend who got hired as a tech coordinator at another district, and I was astounded at what they didn't have. Things that I consider absolutely a necessity were not even there in their district at all. And without some of those things, I think that they're running around chasing their tail a lot of times when they could be doing innovative new things in their district, but they just didn't have time to do it. So objectives here today is to help certain IT departments make life easier and give you some tools that maybe will help streamline things for you and make it easier for you to do and make you more successful as a tech director or a tech coordinator. Most of these things are going to be Windows application based. Obviously, many of them probably could be taken over to a Mac side district, but I'm not going to pretend that I know anything about that. So if you're a Mac district, you're going to have to figure that out on your own. So I'm going to kind of go through a list of things that as I was helping my friend out get started, it was obvious that that district didn't have and hadn't done before. So these are not in any order of importance, by the way, because to me, everything's equally important. If you don't have all the pieces, the puzzle doesn't make sense, and you don't get the whole picture in the end. So when you're missing pieces, you just don't have the whole thing. And so I didn't put it 1, 2, 3, 4. Some of these things are in steps of how I got to where I'm at. So I would make a list of your servers and your functionality. This is where I started. When I got at National Trail, we had 2 servers. Those 2 servers shared every single thing that was done in the district. So we had servers doing multiple items. And if something happened to a server, it happened to a lot of things, and a lot of things would go wrong at one time. So the start of my process was to get an inventory and make a list, because later on we're going to talk about dividing those things up into separate servers. So if you don't have an inventory of your servers, and the district that I was helping had no inventory of their servers, they actually didn't even know what the names of their servers were or the IP addresses of their servers. So they were way behind on the get-go on some of these things. So the first thing I would say is that separating those server roles for you is going to give you dividends. And I'll show you a list of ours, but there is no server, and I'll caveat that, there is at least one, but server that has any multiple roles to them. So if I reboot the print server, nothing else gets affected in the whole district other than printing's down while that one server is rebooting. So I would say that separating server roles on separate virtual machines I've got a list of reasons why up there. Upgrades are far easier if I want to upgrade a server. Again, only one server, one functionality in the district is down if I do that. It's far easier to support and to back up. I can add drives, expand drives, add NIC cards, put them on different VLANs, all on the fly if those are on backed up or on virtual machines. And you can run many machines on a single VM. And I don't know how many people here, who hasn't virtualized yet? How many people in the audience have not virtualized anything yet? So just a couple. I was very hesitant to virtualize when I first got started. I was very much, how is it possible that a virtual machine can run faster than a physical machine that's getting all the resources? And it can. It's magic, whatever, but it certainly can because it utilizes those resources better. So one of the things I would try to do is separate those server roles by virtualizing your servers. Virtualization is very easy. It can be completely free. I went to a big thing with VMware and got some quotes, and I was like, holy crap, I can't afford to do that. My district doesn't have that money. And then I was at a SpiceWorks meeting, and I was sitting next to somebody else, and he goes, dude, it's free. You can just download it. You just lose a couple pieces of the functionality. So we use the free version of ESXi. It's free to download, free to get the key. It's Linux-based. There's no overhead. It's all web GUI now. It's really, really easy to do everything from the web GUI. It's very easy to back up and take snapshots of your virtual machines. And it is so easy. I'm going to go through the steps of installing VMware in about a minute. I have all the slides in the document. But basically it says down here, if you can hit enter key 6 times and the F11 key 2 times, then you can install VMware. It's an easy download. It fits on one CD. You toss it in your machine, you reboot it to the CD, and you get these screens, and you hit enter, and you hit enter, or you hit F11 to accept their agreement, and then you hit enter again to put it on the drive, and you hit enter again because you want English, and you hit enter, well, you gotta put in a password, okay, that's one thing you have to type in. You have to give it a password, you hit enter again, and I'll just go through the screens. Basically, there's nothing for you to do. You just type and drop in the CD, and you go, and when you're done, it says take out the CD and reboot, and you're finished. The only thing I do after it reboots is to set up a static IP address that I can get to through the web GUI after that. But then, I don't need to know Linux. I've talked to some districts that don't want to do it because I don't know how to do Linux. I don't ever touch that thing after I've done. I get the IP, and I'm not doing anything with Linux. I'm just going in here and picking configure network management, putting in an IP address, and then I'm finished with that thing, and I don't walk to that server again, possibly for years. So after I've set up my IP address there, I'm finished. Our VMs that we just purchased this year, we made new ones with our OneNet funds. They cost us about $3,000 altogether. We're running i7 6950s with 20 threads with 128 gig of DDR4 RAM. They've got 1 terabyte of PCI Samsung SSD storage plus some 500 gigabyte SSD in addition, and then we put some regular old enterprise spinny drive in there to save some of the things too, and it depends on what kind of server it is, how we break that up. But that machine right there, for approximately $300, can run a whole lot of virtual machines. And right now, I think my screen capture is not quite current, but we don't even know there's anything on it still. I mean, everything runs so fast, reboots so fast. If you've never worked with VMware and gone to a virtual machine, and when I go to restart that machine, it's seconds from a reboot on this virtual machine. So when we do that, we separate all those roles up, and we have multiple machines running on one VM, and it allows us to make changes on the fly, to back up those machines, and to edit those machines much more easily. So that was kind of the first thing, is that if you haven't virtualized, and part of virtualization to me is to separate those server roles up into separate machines so they're easier to manage. And you might say, 28 servers, crap, that's not easy to manage. It's not like I'm on those 28 servers ever, right? They're just set up so that when I need to do something, I know that if I'm working on KMS, I just go to trail-KMS, and I'm on the KMS server, and that's the only thing that server does. It's the only role it has, but by separating them up and sharing them on a VM, I'm not wasting hardware, which I would be if I was doing physical machines, right? I wouldn't want to make a server that does only one thing and have it be physical, because then I would be wasting a lot. But to do it virtually isn't wasting anything. So part of my making a list of servers, that's my list of servers right there, and my names and what functionality those servers have, so that I immediately know if there's a problem, I know exactly which server to go to and where it's at. I have my name set so it's obvious to me. I know the names of all my servers, and if for some reason I need to go to an IP address, I blanked those out obviously when I took the screen capture. So I have a lot, but it's not a lot of work. And even the setup of those was almost no work, and that kind of comes on to other parts that we're going to get to later, how easy it was to set up these servers. Now, of those things, there's a couple that do multiple things because they fall together, right? Our Active Directory, DHCP, and DNS only makes sense to be on the same server, and our backup one that does the same thing is on its own server as well. But most of those other things are broken out to only one thing. Trail 3 only does the print server. Trail 4 only does the student file server. Trail 2 only does the staff file server. So those things are broken up. And if I need to change them, it's much easier for me to do so. Along with that, because of the new pricing structure of server software, this would be a very expensive task if you weren't part of the Microsoft EES agreement. And I am not a renter of software, but the Microsoft EES agreement, if you're not part of it, is so ridiculously inexpensive. When they came out with this, the price of everything that we do dropped astronomically. It's based on the number of staff members you have. So ours is roughly $2,500 a year, and that gives us unlimited licenses for Microsoft OSs. All the CALs are included. Office is included to send it home to your staff as well. So it gives you a lot for a very low cost. So I would recommend, that's kind of one of my things, is looking into the Microsoft EES agreement if you haven't already. And our experience, again, I'm not supporting any certain vendor, but CDWG seems to have the best price on the EES agreement because they have the State of Ohio contract. I know another district that got it from somewhere else and was paying 4 times the amount when they switched to CDWG. So their costs dropped from $32,000 down to $7,000. It's not 4, but anyway, it's close to that. So I would look into that as well. Windows Update Server. If you don't have a Windows Update Server, you should, depending on the number of Windows machines you have in your district. Obviously, if you only have 4 servers, maybe that's not as big a thing, but when we're looking at bandwidth issues on a daily basis, not having an update server is crazy to me. So it's a separate server in our district, and that's one of the things that we use the Spinny drive for. It's got a 500 gig separate drive that the updates go to because it takes up a lot of space, and it doesn't need the speed of the SSD, in my opinion. So you can set it up so there's no rebooting in your system or on your systems. Automatically gets all the updates. I don't ever go to our update server. I have things that are set for automatic approval, and if you've never installed that service, it's extremely easy to do. It's like 5 clicks and you're done. Then you go into the menu and say what kind of updates you want to have done. But my users and all my end-use machines automatically get all the updates, and yet they're only downloading to 1 machine, not 1,400 machines in my district. So I highly recommend that. If you don't have group policy set up to do that, I have a copy of my staff policy on the Google Slides, so that if you're not used to making group policies and you're not exactly sure how to do it, I've got screen captures of that group policy. Ours update every day at 1,400. And obviously, it doesn't happen every day, right? Updates only happen once a week from Microsoft at best. But I have it set to check every day to make sure that if that machine wasn't on previously, that at 1,400, it's going to check again. It's the end of the day, but yet the machine should still be on. That's why I picked 1,400, whatever time works for you. So I've got screenshots of that. I do have a caveat on the Windows Update server. If you set up group policy to do this and subsequently decide that you don't want to use an update server, which happened in a district that I know of, they got no updates on their servers or their systems for over 4 years. 4 years without an update. That's not good, right? So I would make sure that that thing is running every once in a while and that you're getting those updates, because if you implement that and you don't follow up to make sure your server's running, and I will say this is one that probably once a month probably needs a restart, so I have it set up as a scheduled task once a month that just restarts on its own. So I would highly recommend an update server. I would also recommend a KMS server. If you've never set up a KMS server, it can be tricky, especially with 2016, but the link right there where it says KMS, if you haven't ever set one before, one of the things that we do when we set stuff up for ourselves is we screen capture, take notes, and put it on our own WordPress server, so that if I have to set one up 2 years from now, I remember that I don't know what I figured out, and I go to the WordPress server and it's right there. So if you haven't done it before, we've got screen captures, we've got all the steps that we went through to set this up, and that's linked right there in the Google document, and you would be able to set up your own KMS server fairly easily. How do I get back to my... There we go. Nope, that's not what I wanted. Come back. There we go. The advantage of a KMS server. First of all, you don't have to put any keys on anything. If you lose a laptop, you didn't lose a key. If a kid takes it home and uses a key program to figure out your Microsoft Office key, you don't have to worry about losing it. You don't have your keys on anything. When we install Office, when we install Windows, we put a single of our Microsoft keys on a single thing. The KMS server, if you haven't used one before, automatically activates it, and it's just magic, right? So it requires no interaction at all once you have the thing set up. It'll do all versions of Server 2008 through 2016, all version of Windows Vista through Windows 10, and all of our versions of Office 2003 to 2016. We only use 2016. But once you put those keys in there, you're done, and you just leave it running. One of the things, if you've never used a KMS server before, it has to see 25 machines before it starts working. So we have one lab that we do a full sys prep on and send our image to that lab, and it hits our 25 count, and we're good. And as long as those 25 are there, it'll keep updating forever. But if you do 25 laptops that you send home with staff, as those things that you're counting on keeping your KMS count up, it's going to go away in 30 days and stop working, which happened to a district that I helped set up KMS on. They re-imaged a lab that was the one that was keeping the count up. There's a reason for that, and we'll get to that later on images, but it has to be 25 unique machines or 5 unique servers. Once that's there, it just runs and it works. So I highly recommend KMS, a KMS server, so you can protect your keys and have everything just happen automatically. This seems obvious. Organizing your Active Directory. If your Active Directory is not organized at all, it's hard to do some of the follow-on steps we're going to talk about. In the district that I was helping, every single computer, there was over 1,000 computers in the computer container. As they joined stuff, they never put them in any groups, they never organized it at all. So how do you do GPO or group policy objects when there is no object to apply anything to? So if you don't have your accounts organized between staff and students, and maybe functionally we have ours between every class level organized, or your computers organized between your staff and your students and administration, you need to make some organizational groups and decide how you're going to organize your AD. I don't have pictures of that because everyone's going to decide their own organizational method, but you have to have one to be successful with some of these follow-on steps. And I have this under here, names that are identifiable. If you're joining computers to your network with the default Microsoft name, which this district was, how do you know where it is? If you don't have some kind of name plan that, it starts with, ES if it's an elementary school machine, and then it has an S if it's a staff machine after that, then it has the room number. There should be some way for you, when you look at the Active Directory, to know exactly where that machine is and or where it goes in what container. And if you look at your own computer names and can't do that, you need to come up with a plan to make that easier for you to do. Because when you look at your own Active Directory and you don't know where this computer is, because it's named W blah blah blah, whatever Windows named it when it was installed, how do you do any of the other stuff? So, again, to many of you that may seem obvious, but it wasn't to this particular organization. Group policies are great. If you don't use group policies, you should get kind of familiar with group policies. Some of the ones that we use group policy for, we have them set up for verbose logon. And if you don't know what that means, it means it tells you if something's happening and what's happening. If you have things happening with your group policy, and the staff doesn't know, and it's taking a while, before we turned on verbose logon, they would just be, oh, my computer's frozen, and they would turn it off. And it was doing a Firefox update. If you haven't done a Firefox update, the first thing Firefox does is uninstall Firefox, and then it reinstalls the new version of Firefox. So if you turn it off in the middle of the Firefox update, now you don't have Firefox at all, which used to happen to us. So I would suggest turning on verbose logon. We script all of our printers through GPO, and there's different ways to do that, and I don't have copies of every single policy on this. That would be a lot of slides. But if you have questions on any of those things, I'd be more than happy to help you out with those. We script all of our network drives. Obviously, our Windows Update, I already showed you that points to the update server. You can script your password policies. We script our Wi-Fi policies. As long as a machine gets on our Wi-Fi, it then, as long as it's one of our machines, it then tells it the password to the secure Wi-Fi system, and it sets the priority and all that good stuff. And that's a nice script to have. When we set that one up, it made things really easy, because all we had to do is hook it up to the open one, and then it goes boop, and did all the other ones for us. We set up auto shutdown times, so the PC's all shut off at night as part of our power savings plan. Occasionally you get a teacher who's annoyed that it shut off at 7:30, but it said 7:30 and no one's touched it in an hour. I don't know what you're doing, worrying about your computer shutting down, you haven't touched it in an hour. But anyway, so we have auto shutdown times. You can set up, if you use Land School, which is a wonderful piece of software to monitor your students with, you can make it automatically assign the channels through GPO. And then we do some software installs through GPO. And those are minor ones that happen throughout the year. Flash player installs and Java updates we do through GPO. We try not to do anything major. Major things happen over the summer, and we don't do it with GPO. We do it by redoing the entire machine. But small software ones, if all of a sudden they can't use something and they need the updated version, we'll do through group policy. So if you haven't used group policy, I would suggest Googling some stuff and looking at some, and if you need help with any of these, I'd be more than happy to send you a copy of ours through email as well. So the one thing I will say about group policy is not to go crazy with it. I'm a reservist, and when I'm on base, they tend to go crazy with it. Pushing out a new version of Office through group policy can take forever when they put it on the entire network at one time, and you're waiting there for an hour and a half for your PC to log on. Crap. So some things you need to really think about and test well. I should say that too. Whenever you do group policy, put it in a test container, apply it to one computer, make sure it works the way you want it to, and then put a couple more on it, make sure it works the way you want it to. Making changes to your base Active Directory with a group policy and applying it, and then just walking away can get you in trouble if you haven't thoroughly tested a policy. Okay, one of the biggest things that saves me millions of hours of time is having a good imaging solution. We use FOG, which stands for Free Open Source Ghosts, and we love it. And I've been at districts and gone to presentations on the Microsoft solution and other solutions. I will tell you that FOG wins. It's so simple, so easy. My students FOG most of our machines, images in approximately 6 minutes. Depends on the speed of the processor and the drive that you're imaging to, obviously. But I can do a whole lab from my phone. I can go right on my phone and say 412 needs to be reimaged. I go bonk, and I can be in the hallway, and I can put my phone in my back pocket, and every single one of the computers in lab 412 will reboot on their own, reimage on their own, rejoin the Active Directory, rename themselves. I never have to walk into room 412 to reimage the entire lab in 412, if there's a reason to. It does require you to set up your machines to Pixie boot. My students went around and rebooted every single machine in the district, went into BIOS and set the Pixie boot as first. And before we deploy anything, Pixie boot's always first, except for on laptops. No reason for them to wait when it's not going to be wired most of the time anyways. Pixie boot's later on, and you have to do F12 if you want to reimage a laptop. But every system, every workstation in the district, including all my servers, are set to Pixie boot first. Fog allows you to keep an inventory of all your hardware. It knows everything when you connect it up to Fog about that machine. And I can easily do an Excel download and know every machine in my district. I use it to maintain my one-to-one inventory as well, because all my systems that students have are S-E6, and I can download that, and I know every student's laptop right there. It allows on-the-fly imaging. If I'm at a teacher's workstation and something's messed up, I'm crazy, every teacher's an administrator on their desktop. They want to install software, I'll let them install software. They want to install a virus, they can install a virus, I don't care what happens. I walk up and they go, I got this weird virus thing, and I go, it'll be ready in 6 minutes, and I hit restart, and I hit quick image, and I go, it's wiping your drive, and I'm done. I don't screw around with that. If you installed something and screwed up your machine, it gets wiped. You don't lose anything. On staff machines, and I'll get to images in a minute, but on staff machines, they all have an SSD and a traditional SATA drive. And the user folder is on the traditional SATA drive. And all the programs and the OS and everything is on that 60 gig SSD. So they image, they rejoin, look, everything's still on the D drive. They log on, it makes a new profile, and I remote to them and drag their documents and everything. I just swipe it over, and it takes 1/10 of a second because it's on the same drive. It's just moving to a new folder, and all their stuff magically appears. So I can reimage a staff member without warning them. They'll freak out initially when they log on and don't see any of their documents. My desktop looks different, but it takes me just a second to go through the network and drag their stuff over, and all their stuff is back, and we're good to go. Because of that, I spend no time troubleshooting software issues. 0 time troubleshooting software issues. If it's going to take me more than 5 minutes, I just reimage and walk away. If it's somebody important that needs a computer right now, I'll walk down with a laptop and I'll set it in front of their keyboard, and then I'll start imaging and say, I'll come back and get your laptop in a few minutes. So they have something to keep working if they need to. So I don't do software repairs, I just reimage. This alone saves so much time. Fog is wonderful if you have it set up right, and it renames and rejoins and goes back to the same container in your Active Directory. You have nothing to do after you hit quick image and walk away. And all my students know how to quick image. If I send them down to a teacher's room and they're like, I don't know what it is, Office won't work anymore, it doesn't open up, and I'll be on the phone, did you quick image? No, should I? Yes, start it and come back. I can't tell you how great I think Fog is and how much time that saved me. Fog lets me, and this is a recent capture. You can see how many how many times I've fogged machines. You can see we do it all the time. I'm not saying something that I don't use. That's how many machines were imaged that day. I did 25 that day. I didn't do any that day. That was a weekend. You can see I'm using it all the time. The way Fog works is you send an image to a machine or to a lab. It will only do 10 at a time. Everybody else just waits in a queue, and as soon as it's done, that one starts. As soon as it's done, that one starts. So when you do a whole lab, it might take an hour to do the entire lab, because the more things that are imaging, the slower the image happens. When it's doing 10 at a time, it's about a 16-minute image to 20 minutes, depending on whether it's going to an SSD or a spinny drive. Maintain fresh images. The way it works, I've got a VM machine that I keep all my images on, And every once in a while, I make sure it's up to date with the current Windows updates, with the current version of Java, the current Flash, whatever. And I re-pull it so that I know when I go to your machine and I hit Quick Image and I walk away, worst case, it's got 1 month old of stuff. I don't just leave an image out there and keep them the same one for the next 2 years or until there's some major thing. So I highly recommend doing that. And this is one of the things that saves us a lot of time. If I get a middle school teacher that says, hey, we need this icon on the desktop, or we need this piece of software added because we're doing this, I just add it to the image, and then at 2:30 I hit send to that group, and I tell them, hey, make sure they're all on before you leave. And they all reboot, they all image, and tomorrow they're all rejoined with a new piece of software. I don't go down and install software. I do it to everything at one time when I'm doing it. So we never add software to a group of systems. We change the image, pull and push to a new group. This is my list of images that are on my imaging machine. So this is everything I've got. I've got a Windows 10 32 non-sysprep image. If you don't know, you don't have to sysprep Windows 10. It'll go to an AMD, an Intel box. It all works. I don't need to sysprep ever with Windows 10 like I had to do with Windows 7. That's why it says non-sys. However, when I send that, it doesn't give it a unique ID. So if I don't have a lab that's sysprepped, I don't get the KMS count up and nothing updates. But as long as I got that 25, which is what happens with lab 410, because it gets sysprepped, everybody else gets this non-sys. And then I've got one that goes to small drives. And this 1032 2 drives, that's the one that goes to the staff. It means that it's got a C and a D. And I've got a 2016 sysprepped image. When I want to make a new server, it takes me 4 minutes. I just send that to it. I got a new 2016 machine joined, add it to my network, and sitting there for me to add whatever functionality I want to. I've got an elementary school image, and then I've got a 64-bit image for wherever I need 64. And you might say, why aren't you using 64 everywhere? Because we have TV cards in every single teacher machine that only works for 32-bit. And so if I want to leave that functionality for my staff, I have to leave it at 32-bit. It's fine. But that's why. So, and then I've got a multi-point system. I use multi-point in my elementary school so that each one of their workstations only has one PC, and they all connect up with that. If you haven't used multi-point 2016, by the way, oh my gosh, way better than the old version of multi-point. It is like 10 times faster. It is crazy faster. So if you tried multi-point before, and you're like, this sucks, it takes 20 minutes just to boot this crappy thing, the new version is way better, okay? So I keep those running all the time, and it's getting a Windows update all the time, and when I go and I need to do a whole lab, or every month or so, I'll just go there and re-pull that image so that I know that it's current, and I do something on every image. Is in the computer description, it says what it is and then what date I have prepped, and that way I can look at it and say, oh, I haven't done this since January, it's March, I better redo it again, and I can easily see when I last pulled that image. That's a technique I highly recommend, because you don't want to push out an image and then have it spend an hour and a half doing updates if you don't have to. So Fog also now I'm spending some time on Fog, but I love Fog. So it allows you to make these groups as well. So if I want to send it to the whole first floor elementary school cart, I just hit that button. And all these are different labs and carts that you can group together in Fog to make it easy to image. And that's how I do it on my phone. I just set up 412, I hit the button, and I'm walking down the hall, and they're all rebooted and installed. So advantages: reimaging clears all malware and antivirus. I am not messing with trying to clear a virus issue on a teacher's machine because they installed something and went to a bad site. I just rewipe it. Reimaging assures current versions. It fixes most issues. It takes 5 to 10 minutes, and you just walk away. And I already said this. It automatically renames, rejoins, and puts it in the Active Directory container that it was in before. If it's new, it'll put it in one that you specify with Fog. I'm moving on from Fog. I know I spent a little more time on that one, but that is the biggest thing for me. If you don't have a backup plan, you should have a backup plan. What am I doing on time? I have no idea. Oh, okay. A VM mirror is not a backup. If you have the new or the paid version of VMware, you can set up 2 different VM servers, and it will keep a mirror copy of this one over here, and you can fail-safe fall over to it, and your servers are all running. And if you get the crypto virus, it will just as easily do the other backup server too, which happened to a district that I know. Their plan was the mirror, and so every file got corrupted on both when they got the crypto virus. So that's not a plan. It's nice. I mean, if I had the paid version, I would have that running, but I don't. So, but it's not a backup. I recommend having incremental copies. This is a copy of my backup drive right here. You can see that the EST stands for the elementary school teachers. Their backup. There are four copies here, and there's one in the weekly as well. So I've always got 5 weeks of backups, and every couple months I'll take the current one and put it to an external drive and throw it down in the safe as well. If you come to me and tell me I had a file 8 weeks ago, I can't find it, and it's too bad. But if you tell me the last 6 weeks, I'm going to be able to recover the file relatively quickly. This is just a regular Windows server with, I think it's got 16 terabyte of drive space on it, and with the new server version, if you haven't done it before, you can make one, you can put in multiple drives and make them look like one drive, and it just spreads them out the way it wants to, so that you don't even have to manage the size on there. But so it's pretty easy. The way mine works is it automatically goes to this weekly folder, which is the only one that I have write access to, by the way. That's something else. Your backups, you should not have anyone who has access to that, because if they get the crypto virus and it ruins your backups, then you're screwed, right? So you want to make sure those are protected. So only this folder do I have write access to, and then a batch file runs that incrementally names those files and moves them out of that every single Sunday, so that if I had the crypto virus on my machine, that weekly folder would get ruined, but nothing else outside of that folder would get ruined. So I highly recommend doing something like I have one logon that works to the backup server, and that's the only place I use it, and that's the only place to log on with it, so I don't worry about the crypto virus getting to my backups. So I recommend having some kind of a backup plan, and then you need to think about how fast you can recover from an issue. If my staff file server goes down, I can have everything up to yesterday with the incremental stuff. Yeah, it might take me a couple of hours to do that, but I can make a whole new VM machine in about 5 minutes, and then just start restoring the folders back after that. So if you don't have a backup plan, you should. Help desk system. If you don't have one, I don't know how you do your job. The district that I helped this summer had no help desk system, and when they put one in, all of a sudden they had 300 tickets. Because nobody on the staff had any way of saying, I have an issue. Now, they only have 150 staff members, so staff members are obviously putting in the ticket over and over again, because you can't get 300 tickets from 150 people unless they are doing duplicates. But we use Spiceworks, and if you haven't tried Spiceworks, it's awesome. I love it. It's free. It's really easy to configure. It does a reporting system. It's mobile friendly. There's an app every single time somebody puts in a help desk ticket. I have a little thing that pops up on my phone, and I know that's in there. You can make separate logons. My students all have logons, so they can see as well. And when my tech students see one and they're like, that's one I can do, they can go and accept the ticket, and it goes to them. They can do the ticket. They can close the ticket. They just don't have admin access. There's a huge support community for Spiceworks. Dayton used to have a Spiceworks meeting every quarter. I haven't been there in a while. I don't know if they're still doing that or not. But it's a wonderful system if you haven't used Spiceworks before. When work orders come up, it allows you to see the summary, assign it to someone. You can see who created it. You can see how long it's been open. You can read the ticket, and it automatically says what computer it came from, and it will do some reporting on how many tickets has come from that particular computer or that particular person. It allows you to do things like it automatically maintains a list of all my HP printers and emails me whenever the toner falls below 10%, and it emails me again when it falls below 5%, and it emails me, I have 3 different things set up. And when it's at 1%, that one automatically has a different header and it goes up top, and I better get out of my room and go replace the toner so that one of my staff members doesn't break my printer. But it does all kinds of things like that for me. I could go to that screen and look at SpiceWorks. It also says, it shows me a list of, I want to open that one up. Maybe. Yeah, I might go to it at the end. It lets me see how long my normal work order takes to get to the work order and to close the work order. And I really fight to try to keep that number down. And I have a conversation with my tech students like, we're at 4 hours. We shouldn't be at 4 hours, right? I don't know what your personal tech department is, but we shoot for staff members should be fixed within an hour of putting in a ticket if it's staff support, and 24 hours if it's a student support. So that's what we shoot for in ours. We also have, this is a free network monitoring tool that is recent from SpiceWorks as well. We have SolarWinds, and SolarWinds is better. It's also way more expensive. Anybody here use SolarWinds? Yeah, it's pricey. And for a district to invest in SolarWinds, we did not re-up our contract with them because we did it originally through some grant money. This does what I need it to do. It monitors my servers, it monitors my switches, it automatically sends me an email if the disk space is low, if the server shuts down, if the switch usage is high. It does all that stuff automatically for me, emails me, I can set up whatever alert level I want, and it's totally free. If you don't have anything to monitor your network, I highly recommend this one. I will tell you, it's quirky. And I have this server set to reboot every 2 hours. Because it seems like if it goes to 6, it locks up. I don't know, there's something wrong with the software, but that wasn't that big of a deal. I just have a task every 2 hours that reboots, and it always works. So I'm happy with it as a free tool, and it's great for monitoring all my network and letting me know. So I don't have to go out there and look. I have a screen behind me that stays up on all the time. I have my SpiceWorks screen and my network monitor screen mounted on the wall behind me so that I can always turn around and see if there's anything, because it pops up. If a computer goes out, there's a big red box that pops up here and says what thing is out or what thing is having a problem, and I can see it really, really easily and really quickly. Those are I'm done with the main network tools that really make a difference for me. There's some other things that I'm going to hit as far as what I think schools need. And that was a time-based thing, and I have the time to do it, and then we're going to open discussion if anybody has anything that I missed. I will say all these things together are the only way I can do it half-time with the number of devices we have and maintain a level of support that my staff is happy with, right? Because that should matter. And if my staff feels like there's no reason to tell me that something's broken because it's not going to get fixed, and I know departments that have gotten to that point, that they just don't say anything because nothing's ever going to get fixed. So, and I have teachers at other districts that call me and ask me, could you come to my classroom and fix my PCs? And I'm like, I really can't do that. Yeah, but we haven't had any working in years. And it shouldn't be like that, right? Your staff should feel like they can contact you and that things will be fixed in a reasonable amount of time. And these tools all let me do that. If somebody says there's a problem in the room, I just fog the thing and it's good. Even if I got a bad drive, I have a bad drive on a multi-point system and it doesn't boot up, I set it to reimage. Next time it starts up, it reimages, and generally it fixes the problem, and I'll get down there to replace the drive later. So some other things I think that you need is a learning management system. I will say that in my opinion, a one-to-one initiative without a learning management system is ridiculous. If you've got kids in your high school, kids in your middle school that all have devices, and yet there is no way for your teachers to deliver content to those devices, you're missing a humongous piece for education. So learning management system does great things for you. There's a whole bunch of different learning management systems. We use Moodle. We have for 9 years, and we've gone through almost every version of Moodle as it's progressed. Some people love Moodle, some people hate Moodle. You're not going to get the power of Moodle and all the things it does and make everyone happy. Because it's not made to be easy and simple. It's made to be complex and do everything you'd ever want to do in one place. Some of these other ones are much lighter. They don't do hardly as much, but they're way easier. So it depends on what you're looking for in your district. And these are just some slides comparing what these different ones can do there. I'm not going to spend it, I'm doing a Moodle session tomorrow, but I highly recommend looking into some learning management system for your district if you don't have one. If you don't have Google, I think you're crazy too. It's free. It's an awesome collaboration tool. You have to have it if you're going to implement Chromebooks. Why wait until you get Chromebooks to all of a sudden switch everybody over? In our district, we have to have it to manage YouTube viewing content. So anyone in a SWOCA consortium that isn't a Google district is missing out on functionality without doing it. It's obviously free. If you don't have an LMS, Google Classroom is kind of an LMS. And I'm going to say kind of because it's not, but it's better than nothing. It's way better than nothing. So if you're like, I don't want to maintain an LMS or I don't want to pay for one, at least if you have Google and you have training on how to use Google Classroom, you've got some of those things covered. Okay? So I call it a very thin LMS. It's developing and it's getting better all the time. And I already said I could you spend the whole presentation on this slide. And I did pretty good. It's 8:45. I give myself an A for hitting the time period good. Does anybody have anything they feel like I missed on things that a good district should have?
Well, just two questions. One about the size of your district. I'm getting a feeling you've got about 1,200 students.
Yes, we have 1,150 students.
Okay. Second question is, how do you manage your tech kids? You have some kids all day long or just one period?
No, I teach the advanced technologies classes, so I have a block on, we're a block schedule. We have brown days and orange days. So on orange days, I have no classes. I'm just the tech guy. Teachers can schedule me to come to their classroom and work with integration projects or help them out on those days. On brown days, I have an A+ hardware certification class first period, which is the prerequisite to get to my advanced technologies class, which is third and fourth period. I have students in my advanced technologies classes. So those classes, they know that they're allowed. We have intervention for 45 minutes every day too. And they are expected during intervention, if they're not in my room, because the way it works is I have two groups. You're either in the laptop group or the hardware group, and you switch at the semester. So one semester your laptop repair, and those kids are all in my class during intervention every day. They handle all the laptop one-to-one repairs. If a student gets to my desk, they're in trouble because they're supposed to greet them at the door, how can we help you? And they're supposed to scan the laptop in and either give them a spare if it can't be fixed right away, or in the case of anything software related, we have a whole box of pre-imaged drives. All they have to do is swap the drive, hook it up to the network, it renames, rejoins, and they give them back the laptop and then walk back out the door. So I have kids during my intervention. The hardware kids are in their own intervention somewhere, and if they're not doing something, they're supposed to check Spiceworks and see if there's something they can do to help out.
How many kids are there?
I don't have big classes. I've got 4 in each of those classes. So I've got a total of 8 tech kids. So, and they know that if they've got homework or something to do to intervention, they don't have to be my minions then. But generally speaking, they're happy to work on that stuff. They do all the screen repairs, the hard drive repairs, switch out Wi-Fi cards, work on what I teach them that in my class time, and then they do it during intervention and during the class time. So, yeah.
I just want to say that I just want to add, I use everything that you do, and I do exactly the same. You do one other thing that I have is for like your iPads and stuff like that. A lot of districts use iPads.
And that's a good point. It is an MDM solution. We are an eSpark district. And if you don't know what eSpark is, it's an extremely expensive but wonderful software program that comes with its own MDM. So I can manage all the iPads straight from one web GUI. If the 3rd grade wants this app, all they have to do is send me the ID number for the app, and I drop it in there, and it's installed on all the 3rd grade iPads within the next 20 minutes. So if you have iPads and you don't have an MDM, it's free? Okay? Because we got eSpark on a grant, and we're gonna run out, and we're not gonna have $250,000 to buy it again. Because that's how much it is for a 5-year license for our school for eSpark. It's $250,000. Somebody else wrote us a check for the whole thing. She came in and gave us a check for $490,000 because I wrote a little grant to her, and she said yes. So, but that got us through 5 years, and I'm not sure what we're gonna do after that. But that's great to know. Is there anything else, anybody, that I missed? That because obviously I am not like, I don't know everything. There are obvious things that I may not do that you guys have that you think we should be doing too.
I just had a question. You have the Microsoft licensing agreement. Is there a reason you didn't go with Hyper-V and you went with VMware instead?
I started with VMware before that came out.
Okay.
And I really like VMware. So, I mean, we've had zero problems with it. It's been wonderful. Hyper-V may be just as good. I don't know. I've never used it because we started with VMware. Like I said, I was at a Spiceworks meeting, and somebody next to me goes, hey, it's free, you can just download it. And I literally was sitting on my laptop downloading it while he's telling me where it was, and we've used it ever since.
For your Fog server, is that from your VM servers or you run it as a standalone?
No, it's a VM server as well. So now Fog is a VM server that's the only thing on it's Fog. Like Moodle's on VM server, and the only thing on it is Moodle. But the advantage is when I want to upgrade Moodle, like at the end of the school year, I will keep the 2017 version of Moodle. And I will pull it off, and I'll put it on another VM server to leave it running so that, and now no one has write access, so that if he's the principal and he needs to see how he got this grade, and because we've had parents contest grades, right? And we need to have some historic way. We can just pull that Moodle server, throw it over here, and then I wipe the current Moodle server, and now it's the 2018 Moodle server. And Fog runs really well as a virtual machine, and we did the same thing. I ran out of space. So because it was a virtual machine, I could throw one up